it felt like a lot to be responsible for a group of kids from 6th grade to 8th grade, as a middle school band director, because it's, those things that you see, like once you start the kids in 6th grade and they start to develop their habits and they get to 8th grade and they still have those habits. And, perhaps some of them are not as great as they could have been. That's a moment for, I always looked at it as a teacher. It's like, okay, so how did I let that be ingrained, and what can I do in the future to not allow that particular habit to be ingrained in students that is not allowing them to be as successful as they could be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything Band, a podcast that features conversations with composers, conductors, and performers of music for winds and percussion. My name is Mark Connor. I'm a composer and educator, and each week I have the great fortune to speak with and share the stories and wisdom of musicians and leaders in the band community. The Everything Band podcast is a proud member of the Music Teachers Development Podcast Network. The Muted Network provides support in the form of audio on-demand programming designed by and for music educators. You can find more information about our network at mutedpodcasts.com. Before we begin, I'd like to thank all of you for listening. I really appreciate your time and hope that you are finding value from these interviews. I rely on word of mouth and social media to bring the show to new listeners. If you think you know one or two people who might find these interviews useful, please let them know about it. You can also help by following me and sharing posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Remember, help your students live up to the best that is in them through music. And now, on to my next guest, Arris Golden. Hi, Arris.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great today.
So thanks for joining me. You were quick on the draw when I asked you, and I really always appreciate that. And so it's great to kind of finally meet you.
It's great to meet you too. And it's one of those situations where it was either sign up quick or we'd be waiting. Yeah. I didn't want to make you wait.
It's sort of that. This seems to be the band director's thing, right? We have these windows of time and then stretches where we're unavailable. And
oh, absolutely.
So, Arris, I know you by your reputation, and I've heard a lot about you, but this is the first time we've met. So can you tell me and your listeners about yourself, what you're doing right now?
Well, I'm currently the assistant director of bands and associate director of the Spartan Marching Band at Michigan State University. So, yeah, we're on summer vacation up here right now. We're getting ready to start our conducting symposium on Sunday.
And so when you say you're the director of the marching band, what are your duties specifically?
Well, I'm the associate director. So David Thornton, my colleague, is the actual director of the Spartan Marching Band. And we have a lot of shared duties. So we both do a lot of the administrative tasks that accompany the Spartan Marching Band. And when you're moving 300 plus people, there can be many things to share. We also, we team teach music. We team teach drill to the Spartan Marching Band. I do some arranging of music for Spartan Marching Band and for Spartan Brass, which is our basketball band. This year, since I'm actually, I've had a year of experience back here and have been in town and have settled in, we'll actually do some drill writing for the group. I'll do one drill this season. But yeah, it's a fun job. It's a lot of just fun and so much reward in working with the Spartan Marching Band and working with our students who are in it, who are just phenomenal people.
So, Arris, what's your origin story? How did you get into music, your instrument, that sort of thing?
Well, as many parents do, my parents decided I needed to take piano lessons. So I started taking piano lessons in 2nd grade, and I did that all the way through my senior year of high school. And then in 6th grade, as it happens in many places, we were able to join beginning band. So I joined beginning band in 6th grade as a little alto saxophone player. And I did my 3 years of middle school band. I did my 4 years of high school band. And all of this was down in North Carolina. So I'm a product of the Brunswick County schools down around Brunswick County is the county that touches New Hanover County, which is where Wilmington, North Carolina is. So I'm a product of those schools and of the South Brunswick High School and middle school band programs. And I had the same director throughout middle school and high school, Steve Skillman. And really, I still think that this to this day, our high school band and middle school band were a bit of, we were overachievers. For the area that we were in, we did lots of advanced music that perhaps other bands in that area didn't do, which I think in many ways piqued my interest about music and about band music, and was really the best possible start I could have had. And we were very fortunate to have him as our kind of fearless leader, our band director, and to have him for 7 years, because he was able to really guide us and help us be successful.
Now, you had a great experience where you had a director who was wonderful, and so for 7 years you had good instruction. How do you feel about that situation where someone might be teaching for that long the same kids?
I think he saw it. I'll try to speak for what I think was his perspective. I think he just saw it as such a great opportunity and such a gift to him to be able to guide all of us and to get to know us. And he had to really travel a lot, because South Brunswick encompassed not only the Southport area, which is right at the coast, but a little bit inland to Bolivia, North Carolina. He would have to go from Southport to Bolivia to teach us at the middle school there, and then he would be teaching in Southport, and that's like a 20 to 25-minute drive to get from Southport up to Bolivia, teach us to go back down, and he was covering both those elementary sites until we combined into the middle school site, and that was when I was in seventh grade, maybe. Yeah, I was seventh grade when that school opened, and then be responsible for the high school band as well. So for him to be able to manage all of us younger kids and then still manage all the moving parts of the high school gig that he had, and then still be able to connect with all of us. And I honestly, literally had never thought of this in this way, to be able to connect with all of us and get us into music and to get us to work as a group in each setting. I'm just sitting here thinking in retrospect, that was just phenomenal for him to be able to do that and actually have in the end game a high school band that would play like grade 5 by North Carolina standards, grade 6 music to a really solid level of musicianship and performance. It's pretty incredible. I hadn't thought of that way. It felt like a lot to be responsible for a group of kids from 6th grade to 8th grade, as a middle school band director, because it's, those things that you see, like once you start the kids in 6th grade and they start to develop their habits and they get to 8th grade and they still have those habits. And, perhaps some of them are not as great as they could have been. That's a moment for, I always looked at it as a teacher. It's like, okay, so how did I let that be ingrained, and what can I do in the future to not allow that particular habit to be ingrained in students that is not allowing them to be as successful as they could be.
At what point in high school did you know that you wanted to be a musician or perhaps a music teacher?
I honestly knew really in middle school, because I so much enjoyed learning to play and learning about music. I kind of, had an inkling. It's like, this is pretty cool, and we had such a healthy respect for our teacher. There are many of us who were in that mindset for a little bit. I feel like a few of us went into music and did music, and, many of us didn't, but, I think a lot of us had that thought as we were going through. And then in high school, that option continued for me. It was in the back of my mind, but I started to explore some other things. but I did manage in manage in high school to roam around the band room and teach myself to play things other than alto saxophone. So by the time I left high school, I'd ventured off into brass instruments and had kind of taught myself with some help from Mr. Skillman how to do some things on brass instruments, and I'd acquired myself a cornet. Another story for another day. And actually ended up playing tenors, playing drums in the drum line for a marching band. So by the time I left, even though I didn't go right into school and major in music ed, I'd acquired a part of the skill set to be able to do that. Like, again, I'm just reflecting on things I did as high school artist, and I'm just like, I'm laughing in my own head. It's like, oh, it's pretty remarkable the things we do as kids that then affect us later in life.
Do you remember any of the motivation for any of that? Like, what were you thinking?
When people switched to horn, I wanted to switch to horn. So I was very curious about brass, but he wouldn't let me do it. I still don't know why, but he wouldn't let me do it.
Would you let one of your kids do it?
Absolutely. Yeah, many of them have done that over the years. It's one of those. It's like, how do you let that kid that has that natural curiosity to try something new, but is pretty competent in what they're doing on the instrument that they're playing? How do you let them explore that? I think, in some ways it was a struggle. For me at first, I kind of struggled with it, but I think in the long run, letting them explore that, it resulted for us in one of two things. Them figuring out, no, really, I'm on the instrument I belong on, so I'm going to stay here, or, oh, wait, this fits me even better than what I was on or what I was playing, so that, we had some fun discoveries through that. And I just think I wasn't of the mind after a point that I would want to limit kids, unless there was an actual performance issue that would not allow them to be successful in switching, which we then have to have the conversation about and talk about why perhaps it wouldn't work as well for them as what they were currently doing.
This is an interesting topic because this is something that's on my mind because I teach such small kids that often they want to switch, or often they start on something, they have their heart set on something that they're just not really going to be successful on. And so the big philosophical question I guess I want to ask is, how do you know when switching is too much? Like, when should we say no and when should we say yes? Like, is there a point where it's just diminishing returns?
Well, it so much depends. It's a different story from student to student. It just, it really comes up when you're talking about, one of the places that popped up was really when it was in terms of switching to percussion. And it's like, how do you, is that kid who currently struggles for steady pulse, struggles to understand where the beat is, where the beat's occurring, where the subdivision is occurring, is that kid going to mature and grow out of that? Or is that going to be a consistent for that, in which we all know in the long run they're going to struggle in playing an instrument that requires them to be pretty precise, if not exactly precise, about both those things. And really, it was an interesting thing because in many situations, I would ask them to wait. It's like, okay, let's wait. Let's get into 7th grade, and then let's see where we are. Let's reassess this. And sometimes they would grow and they would mature into their bodies so they had more control of things and the switch could come. Some of them, would switch when they got to high school even, and maybe perhaps supplement with private lessons or something like that so they could get more of the skill set that they missed in middle school, but their pulse was better, so they were able to better handle the demand of playing that instrument. I think for me, that struggle was not always, but a lot based in percussion more so than anything else. Because typically if kids were interested in switching to another wind instrument, they ended up miraculously being a good fit for it. It's like you're looking at your really solid trumpet player who's going to be a great contributor in a trumpet section, but wants to try tuba. And it's like, okay, well, let's do that. And then you're looking at the kid who sounds even better on tuba. Well, yeah, you're going to let that kid play tuba, or at least sounds as good on tuba, or sounds as good on euphonium. You're gonna let that happen, and that occurred really more frequently, especially at the switching period in sixth grade when you're looking for people to play color instruments and all those things, than kids being not successful. Hopefully, all that made sense.
What was your middle school program like? And I know that you had great success, but can you talk about that experience?
Sure. So, I taught for 18 years total in middle school before I'm going to graduate school to do my DMA. And it was, someone asked me the other day if I miss it. And my response was, I miss the energy. I miss the energy of the kids. That is, middle school kids deliver a particular kind of energy back to their teachers. And whether we realize it, I think we kind of live off of it a little bit. But I miss that. And the last program where I taught was Gravelly Hill Middle School, which is in Eflin, North Carolina. And Eflin's right around Chapel Hill. It's right around the Piedmont area of the state. It's in Orange County, North Carolina. And I was very fortunate that I actually was the first band director at that school with that program. So I got to do the setup of things. I got to make a lot of decision about, which instruments we're going to order, which music we're going to order, all the things to just really get that program set up and off and running in the best possible way. I think the kids were super successful. And I think I was very fortunate to have kids who were smart and talented and willing to go for big things and willing to try to do big things, which is how we ended up just really setting up a program that was rewarding for all of us. And I think, from that as well, I was very fortunate to work with 4 other directors who were very, very much like-minded. So though our programs were the 3 middle school programs were significantly different in ways, we also thought a lot on the same page, and the high school groups and directors were very, very similar in their thinking. So we were actually able to build throughout the county programs that were really solid and really, really great for the kids and for the communities, or at least that's my perspective of it. And hopefully I'm not looking through rose-colored glasses back at that, but it just really, we had a lot of opportunity, and we're very fortunate to be able to take advantage of it, is another way I would state that.
So can you talk about that experience of opening that school? How much did you control as far as what was going to be in your band room and set up for your program?
All of it, really. Back to speaking about my colleagues in that county, one of the middle school band directors was asked to do a setup and do like a pre-order of what should be, because he was actually the only one that was remaining, because my school was brand new and the other teacher at the other school that was existent was leaving. So he was asked to do a setup, like a basic inventory of what should be in the room. And name is Michael Capps. It was fantastic. I mean, I had to tweak and change very little of what he had in that original order for instruments and for equipment in the room. And I got the job offer on that pretty early on, luckily. So I was able to take a look at what he'd done and tweak that. And then all the music, I ordered in it was remarkable. I ordered in all the titles that I wanted for concert band and for jazz band, for small ensembles, solo and ensemble music. I was able to order in all the instructional materials like method books and anything that I would want to use. So yeah, we collectively had a great deal of input and control over what actually showed up in that band room, which is, as you can imagine, that takes a lot of issues off the table, like immediately. So in that first year, when we started up, it's like, okay, it's time for color instruments. It's time to switch people. Well, I didn't have to worry about calling anybody to borrow anything or calling anybody to switch things out. It was all there in the band room. So I could literally go, okay, we're trying this. Okay, great. Here's this horn. It's issued to you. Take this home, do this. So it's very easy to move kids very fluidly from instruments they were on to new instruments. It was even down to having, I didn't order this. This was ordered for the school because the school was very technology based. Smart board with projector, all those things were in the room upon arrival. And I won't say that it made things easier, but it definitely, again, put away some issues that we might normally see as band directors when we're going in and starting or going in and taking a new position.
I know that your band performed at Midwest, and you also had several premieres. As I read your bio, it talks about music by Brian and Steven and Michael Markowski. Can you talk about these experiences that you gave for the kids?
Sure. So the Midwest performance was actually a clinic performance. So we served as we did a larger session, and it was the Gravel Hill Band. And plus me, Dr. John Pasquale, who's the director of the Michigan Marching Band, and Patricia Hughes, who's still a director down in North Carolina, doing a presentation with the ensemble. And it stems from a lot of work that John had done for his dissertation in a different way, based in the teachings of Eddie Green and how to rehearse the ensemble and integrate fundamentals throughout the ensemble rehearsal, and really take even things from your existing repertoire and make them a part of your fundamental process. So that's what that was. And that experience, I mean, some of those students had not been outside of North Carolina. So to get them on buses and to go to Chicago, Illinois, I still remember to this day the looks on some of their faces when we got off the buses and they're staring up at where we're going to go to the sky deck. Because that was literally the first thing we did when we got to Chicago, was go do that. And they just being in that city was, I know that's something that many of them will remember for a very long time. And we're fortunate with that experience as well. We did that clinic, but we also were able to go out to Oswego and do a combined performance with Trauber Junior High School, and Rachel Maxwell and her kids. And that was really, I don't know that wasn't my favorite part of the experience, because we got to go out and Rachel was very gracious and allowed us to rehearse in their band room before our clinic performance. We were able to get the kids Giordano's, which some of them still through high school would talk about that pizza. Because why would you not? It's my favorite Chicago style, so of course we're going to do that. And then we went back out and did the concert. So it was Rachel's holiday concert. So it was her 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and us. But then at the end of it, Rachel was able to find a combined piece for us all to do. And it was just so neat to see all of those band kids and participate with all of those kids, from Rachel's 6th graders all the way through the 7th and 8th graders from both schools, playing together. It's like that is probably one of my most treasured moments of my teaching career, because that's just kind of what it's all about. In the long run, I think for all of us, is getting kids together and getting kids to play music and have meaningful experiences through it. that was remarkable. I still have a recording of that somewhere in the archives, and occasionally I'll find it and I'll still listen to it because it's just so. And we're all like conducting like drum majors. It's like there's one or two people with each band, and it was just a neat experience. The premieres and the commissions, that's right up there as well, because again, the kids' faces when they realize that, wait a minute, that's the composer of this piece. Yes, it is. And you can ask him literally any question you want to about this piece. You can ask him about how he became a composer. You can run the gamut of questions within reason that you've ever wanted to know about these people and what they do and how they do it. And if you write music yourself, if you just write down little melodies yourself, you could talk to them about that. I mean, it was really, the kids really, I feel like, enjoyed that. I think the parents enjoyed having people in as well, especially when we first started. Because the first piece was composed for us by Brian Balmages, and Brian came out a couple times to work with the band and work with the kids, and the kids just loved him. I mean, they thought it was fantastic. And I really thought all of the composers that came out were fantastic. I think the most memorable of all of those premieres and commissions, I think for the greater community, when I say that, I'm talking about all of us band directors, are probably, it's the 5th anniversary of The Cave You Fear. And I really loved that piece when Michael Markowski wrote it, but I don't know that he or I had any idea how much other people were going to love that piece. I mean, it's fantastic music. And I just love the fact that it's still so at the forefront of repertoire that middle school bands can play, because while it really fits middle school bands, there's some things and some challenges in there that really help grow and help, I think, expand the way kids look at music just based on how Michael wrote things. And then, of course, as Stephen puts it, awakening the machine. That was just an awesome experience.
Well, I think, I had Stephen on the show and I had Michael Markowski on the show, and I think we talked about both of these pieces with those composers while they talked with me. So that's pretty remarkable when I think about it.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like when I was teaching in public school, I was looking for ways to do something different for the students than just, here's our method book, we're going to learn from these method book lines, okay, these lines correlate to this thing over here, and then these pieces fit the fundamentals that we've learned from this, and now we're going to learn these pieces, and now we're going to do a concert. I think after a point I just went, what other opportunities can we all collectively provide for these students that are outside that box? And we have to do those things, and those things are pretty key to what we do as music educators, as middle school band directors. But I just wanted to enrich things more. I wanted to figure out how to do that, and figure out how to get composers with existing music in to the band room, which then turned into, hey, I wonder if we could have something written specifically for us. And very luckily, we had the resources to be able to do that.
Yeah, the idea of commissions is something that maybe scares some people because they think of the money involved. How are you able to overcome those challenges?
I had really great band boosters. And I also had really great colleagues who were willing to get on board with my whims at times.
Well, that means so much, that support from colleagues and administrators and parents.
Well, especially the Machine Awakes was really cool because we were able to premiere it. We did a high school, middle school band combination as a premiere. So it was Gravelly Hill plus the Cedar Ridge High School Band that premiered it. And then that was a fairly large consortium that funded the piece. So what we were able to do beyond that was we were able to set up a clinic situation so that the other bands in the consortium could send kids, and we created basically a consortium honor band to do the full consortium premiere of it. It was about maybe 2 to 3 weeks after we did the premiere. Stephen was able to come in and work with the group and talk to the group about the piece, and Verena was there and was able to help run the electronics and work. It was a great situation where all of us just kind of came on board and just took a Saturday and got all the kids together, and we did the Machine Awakes, and we did several other pieces as well. And it was a combination middle school, high school band, and it was a really neat day. And it was a lot of that was the North Carolina-based bands that did that. We had some other bands in that consortium from other parts of the country. But yeah, it was really fun to watch all that come together, and for all of us to just get together and provide that for the kids.
Yeah, I love that idea of bringing more in by doing that honor band and thinking beyond just your four walls.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, very fortunate to have had colleagues that, and I can't even remember right now how it evolved and how we did that, but just that everybody was so willing. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love for my kids to be involved. Where are we doing it? When are we doing it? How are we doing it? What do we need to do? It was just a very, I hope it was as neat an experience for the kids as I, again, remember that it was. Yeah, especially just getting to meet Steven. I mean, Steven's so personable and he's so great when he works with bands. It was just fun for them to be able to interact with him. And again, for them to see, wait a minute, so this is the guy that wrote the piece? Yes. He's right here. He actually lives here in Durham, which so many of them were blown away by. Yeah, he lives down the street, guys. He's a reason.
It was so funny you were talking about that. I worked at a junior high band camp, and we had our concert yesterday, and I did a composition class with the kids where they wrote a march with me, and then they played it in the concert. And, so they were asking me questions. So, we had like a little Q&A at the very end, and the kids were asking me things like, so how'd you get started writing music? What is that like? How do you hear melodies in your head all the time? And then you get the kid who goes, what's your favorite color?
Exactly. Well, I mean, what's on the forefront of their mind, it's like they're dealing with the fact, oh my gosh, you're a real person. Wow. So, let me ask you some real person questions,
It was, well, they didn't know. Because I walk in and I'm teaching the composition class, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then it's by Thursday, they didn't even know that they were playing a piece of mine on their concert. They didn't even know it. And then finally the conductor's like, well, he's standing right here. And they're like, that's you? It's like, you didn't, I told you my name. You didn't notice?
No, because we were thinking about what our next move was going to be, once we got out of rehearsal. It's like, what do we have planned? What are we doing? They're so funny.
That's why I like that age. It puts everything in perspective.
They live in the moment.
Yes, they do. Better
than probably most of us adults do. And that's where that energy comes from, because you, as a middle school band director, you need to know your stuff. You have to know, and I'm not coming out of college. That was not me. I knew some stuff, but I didn't know all the stuff. And I figured out very quickly, it's like, you need to know the stuff. So you need to do some more work on your own. You need to learn some more things, but you need to go out and find some people that know their stuff, and I'm very fortunate that I was able to connect with a lot of experienced band directors in the area who were willing to put up with my curiosity. so that I could get better, because you have to be able to not only teach them the music, but you have to teach them all the things that allow that music to occur. So it's that getting past the barrier of, wait, I really need to breathe to play this thing? Yes, you do. Not only do you need to breathe to play this thing, but here's how you need to use the air to make that happen. So it's not just get a sound. It's like, let's get that characteristic sound that you should be making so that the music sounds great. And it's all the things between that and that final performance that we have to hop up on that podium, on that little box, and have all of that information available so that when somebody doesn't do the fingering to D flat in the trombone section, that never happens, right? We don't know where, right. You have to be able to go, well, is it what? Actually, I would look at them and go, well, what do you think it is? And then go, you're close, but that's actually D what? I mean, you have to be able to have these conversations and provide them with the opportunity to learn the things that will let them play music well. I felt like a rambling answer.
No,
ramble around.
I was going to use your answer to tie together some of the things that we've been talking about and discussing. And one of the things you mentioned, you talked about working with Rachel up at Trauber, and we've talked about sort of community. And I want to ask you, you have a tremendous network that you have learned from, and as I listen to your stories, you're talking about all these people you've worked with. How do we collect these people around us to learn from? And this is one of the gifts that I've given myself from doing this podcast, is I feel like I learn so much every week. How do we do this? How do we build this community around ourselves?
And somewhat, my brain just went, it's probably easier than most of us think. And I don't think I thought about it as much when I started teaching as I think about it now. And probably even a little bit differently, because when I first started teaching, I knew I didn't have all the answers I needed, but I was pretty bound and determined. It's like, this has just got to get better. This is crazy. It's like, you can't not know that. So again, I was very fortunate. When I was in college, they of course would send us out to observe different teachers around the area, and we, UNC Chapel Hill, were very, very spoiled at the time to have one teacher's name was Jane Cutchin, who taught at Phillips was a junior high school back then, Phillips Middle School, and Judy Hoyle, who taught at originally it was Culver's Middle School, then she moved to McDougal Middle School, that were right there in Chapel Hill. And those two women got most of us through that school off to a better start than I could probably even express. So I was very lucky that I was able to go back to them and see them at events and see them in places and be able to say, okay, so this thing right here, I know I learned it in college, and I tried it, but it's super not working. It's like, what am I doing? What can I do better? What am I doing wrong? And they would very quickly see, well, it's this thing right here. I do it this way. It's like, let me try that. And trial and error, and them helping all of us. It was those two women helped more Chapel Hill grads than I could probably express. And then I think in many ways, if experienced teachers figure out that you as a young teacher are curious, and you realize you're inexperienced and you're trying to learn, they will help you. And sometimes you have to ask, and you have to ask a very specific question that they can answer, and then it goes on from there. Or they will see you struggling and go, oh, good grief, what are you doing? Let's talk about that. You can invite them to cut. One of the things I did that I'm very proud of, and I don't say that often, is we went to our assessment one year and we did pretty well. But there's one judge who didn't like what we did. and told us why. So the very next year, when we were getting ready for assessment, I had that judge come in. I'm like, can you come in and can you work with us on these things and can you help us do these things better? It's like, if you're going to tell me, your articulation is not clear, it needs to be clarified, I'm probably going to look at you and go, okay, I think I hear what you're talking about. Can you tell me more? Can you tell me how you would teach that? Can you tell me how you would make that better? And hopefully not in an attacking way, but in a way that's just like, oh my gosh, I hear it too. Can you tell me more? Please help me fix it. And I think it's that approach of, again, no one person can be, in my opinion, can have all the answers to all the things, because there's so much stuff that we have to know. And I think really for me, and I think this is how I found some of these people that you're talking about that I'm kind of attached to in my career now. And you talked about your train of thought derailing. I think mine just did too. I think, let me see if I can get it back. I really feel like the reason that we're all in the network is because we know that we share some similar answers, but we also know that we sometimes have answers that one of the other people may have answers that we don't have. And I think if you have found your people, if you found, find your tribe is a big thing, and I think you have to. You literally in your tribe can have all the answers that you may need access to. You just have to know. You have to know your people and know how you can help each other. For example, if I have a horn question, the number of my friends that I can ask for that answer is stunning, right? If I have opinions on, okay, my horn players sound like this, but I want them to sound like this, how can I help them do that? Rachel Maxwell comes to mind. Tiffany Hitz comes to mind. Robin Gorham comes to mind. I have 4 or 5, just these ripping horn players, and some of them teach middle school who will go, this is what the issue is, and then I can go deal with it, or I can have them come in, or I can Skype them in, or if I want to talk recruiting, I'm going to call Wendy Higdon. I'm just very fortunate that, and I think it goes back, I'll say the word mindset, that there's so many of us that are in our group of friends that are that, hey, let's get better. Hey, let's get better. Hey, I'm not getting better. Help me get better. That we live with, that's just a part of who we are. I feel very spoiled that I am, friends with all these people, and that I'm colleagues with all these people. And even where I am now, here at Michigan State, it's crazy. I mean, to one of my favorite current professional development things is, so I am not rehearsing today and I'm not teaching today, but I do have time today to go sit in David Thornton's rehearsal, or I do have time today to go sit in Kevin Zedetal's rehearsal. It's like, I think that's what makes the profession attractive to so many of us, is that you can never learn everything. There's always an opportunity to grow, to get better, to learn something new, to access new music. It's a pretty incredible time. And I can't honestly tell you when I decided or how I decided that that's how you should be. But I'm very glad that I did, because I never stopped learning things.
I was going to say that's clear from when you describe yourself in middle school trying out all the different instruments.
Well, that's a very good point. I guess I have, in some form or another, had a natural curiosity about things around me throughout my life, sometimes to my own detriment. Those are stories for another podcast. But I mean, it's And I think, teaching, I think the reason that teaching middle school worked out for me is because middle schoolers tend to be the same way. They want to know stuff. They want to learn stuff, even though they may push back against us sometimes. They want to learn, they want to know, they want to try things, as evidenced by some of the little situations they end up in with their instruments sometimes, But they want the guidance to be able to learn and get better and grow and do things that they perceive as cool with music.
One of the great things about this podcast is that I am the same way as you are, Arris. I really am always trying to be better, and I always feel like I have to work harder. And so when I talk to people on this show, I find that the people that I'm talking to, everyone shares this. And it's so empowering and validating to hear other teachers say this, when it kind of connects with you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's a remarkable quality. I think you really hit on a quality of, good teachers are always trying to get better. We're never satisfied with what it is we've done. There's always a way to do it better.
Yes. And that can, depending on how you want to take that can be fuel to your fire, or it can stop you in your tracks.
Right. It can create a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. And I think because I think a lot of people probably start out in the, oh my gosh, this is so much place. But if you can get yourself to work through that over however much time it takes you, get past that and get to oh wow, look at all I can do and learn, and look what I could learn to share with students or my colleagues or whomever. I think that the potential that exists is unlimited. But it's just like those first steps out of the gate to, okay, well, this is not going so well for me, but I know I've heard so-and-so's band, and I know that they figure this out. I wonder if I could get them to come work with us, or if I could talk to them about this topic or whatever. I mean, if you can get yourself to that point where you're just kind of willing to go, yeah, okay, so right now I'm pretty mediocre and or terrible at this. Could you please help me? Because it really is such it's such that, I get the term that just popped into my head is that moment of self-reckoning with like, I want to do this well. I think I can do this well, but I am not doing this well right now. Who can help me be better? And I will gladly return the favor to you. If you feel like I know something that you don't do quite so well, I will gladly chat with you about it, because it's that reciprocity that helps us all get better.
So, Arris, I have two more questions before I get to my kind of final battery of questions that have come up during our conversation. And the one is, this is more for teachers, for young teachers who might be listening. What kind of challenges have you faced in your career, and maybe a couple of solutions for younger teachers?
One of the bigger challenges was being able to sit down and figure out how to select things for my students to play. It's like, how do I sit down and look at all this repertoire and then determine what's going to best fit the students that I teach? And I feel like when I started out, just put that on the list of things. I was not very good at that, because I tended to, I just made this up. I tended to look at it from the, I like this kind of choosing selection process.
Sure.
Oh, I like this piece. And then, I'd put it in front of the kids and it would either go well or it wouldn't, and, whatever. As opposed to, the process I feel like I use now is like, oh, I like this piece. Why do I like this piece? Then I start to do a little bit of digging. It's like, okay, so why does this piece speak to me? What is going on? Oh, I see. Okay, so that's one thing. So what else is going on? And then in that process, it's like, oh, okay, so does that thing that I really just am compelled by fit the actual trombone players I have? Yes, cool, but it also offers them a little bit of a push so we can go from here to here. Cool. And it's that whole, I think it's like, I think we all have to start with, ooh, I like that. But then I think the why becomes very, very important. And then I think the why really should send us on a bit of a journey of discovery with that piece to figure out what compelled us and to figure out, okay, does this work for the ensemble I have and where we are in this time frame? Because I think we all know it's like there's no greater drudgery in teaching than teaching a piece that we don't believe in. So I think it has to start from I like it, but then have more just depth to it as we go through before we get in front of the kids and try to share it with them. Another challenge, as a beginning teacher, just navigating all the systems you have to face in a school setting is remarkably difficult. And figuring out who all the people are, and that could be said for any job that you're beginning in. It could be beginning teacher in a public school. It could be beginning at the collegiate level. It could be any job. Who do I need to know? Who's in charge of the things that help me do my job and help me function? If I need to get something, how do I get that something? And just learning the roadmap of the job and learning the important people, the important landmarks on that roadmap so that you can be successful and not do things in ways that you shouldn't. That's such a big challenge. And, if you're lucky, you will have a very strong mentor who will help you through these things. Additionally, if you are still in contact with as a beginning teacher with your student teaching mentor, like your cooperating teacher, that could be another great resource to keep in contact with because these people have already navigated the system. And especially your K-wide mentor or your school building mentor, that person's gonna, I hate to say it this way, know where the body's buried and know, it's like, this is why this decision went this way. And this is why we do things this way to avoid X, Y, and Z. So you don't have those pitfalls again, it's enough to learn to teach the students in front of you. So, making sure that you know the people in the know to help you navigate things so that you can really worry about your teaching, pretty key. Befriend the secretary.
Yeah,
your building.
It's such a cliche. It's the secretary and the custodians, right?
But it's those people. I was on Facebook yesterday, and someone had posted about, as I am every day. Someone had posted about their custodians putting something together for them. Like something came in, and the custodians just immediately constructed it, and it was ready for them. And somebody, questioned back. It's like, wow, great. You need to give those people something. And the response back was, well, I leave them stuff throughout the year. I give them this, or I give them this, or give them this. It's like, well, yeah. So that's why that's constructed. It seems like it's so ridiculous to do, but you don't have to. It's not kind of a kiss up to them situation. People like to know that. Even though perhaps your job rank may be different or your position in the school may be different, you still respect what they do. It's like you realize that it's a pain. Yeah, you realize as a director that it's a pain for the custodians to have to put down the tarp in the gym and then set up all the chairs in the gym and set up the mics in the gym and then to do the reverse of that and tear it all down.
Yeah, it's
so taking a second to say to them, thank you for doing that, or I always used to give the custodians in my building a band T-shirt every year because they love that. I would just order so that the office staff got a band T-shirt, the custodians got a band T-shirt. Because it's $5? But then on, staff Fridays or dress down Fridays, some of those people showed up in their band T-shirts. It was kind of like, okay, all right. They even though it's something small, they appreciate they appreciate knowing that you know that they help things get done.
All right, so I have one more big question before the final round, and you know, I'm thinking about your journey, and I've asked this of others who have made your particular journey. Is you taught middle school for 18 years, and obviously it's a career and life-defining experience. But then you chose to get a doctorate, and now you're at Michigan State. What was that journey like, and was that difficult or empowering? How did that feel?
It was very hard, and I think people that know me would tell you this. It's very hard for me to think of it. Well, first of all, I struggle to take a compliment, so that's like just a part of who I am, and I really kind of struggle to think of myself as doing anything that would be empowering. I'm kind of going, well, this is what I wanted to do. I'd kind of had this interest in my mind of minds, even when I was an undergraduate, and my undergraduate career was a little different than most. But I was very, very fortunate that I had teachers when I did music ed that were really inspiring. And it's just, I would love to be able to be involved in bands and be involved with and engaged in music ed at, the collegiate level, just because I feel like there's some discussions I could participate in that would be helpful to the profession. So, I feel, I don't know if I feel empowered. I feel very excited to have the opportunity. I very much feel fortunate to be involved with things like that at the collegiate level, and to be back here at Michigan State, and to be able to work with the people I work with here and our students here who are just all phenomenal. I don't know that I've given myself permission yet to stop and think, hi, that was pretty cool that you did all that. I really, I don't, because I'm not that person who stops to celebrate something or to think about how empowering something was, because I'm trying to think what I need to do or what I would like to do next. Does all that make sense? I will tell you, the first weekend in May, the first Friday in May last year was a very fun moment to be able to celebrate, because that's when commencement is here at MSU. And, just being able to be hooded and to be able to be announced as like having completed the DMA, that may be the one moment that I actually have felt the most, is like, all right, you did it. You've done this, you've done the work, you've put in this blood, sweat, and tears, all those cliched things perhaps that say, you've arrived at this point that you've thought you wanted to arrive at for all these years. But yeah, I feel very fortunate to have the opportunities that I have to do all the things that I get to do. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's just kind of where my brain went.
No, you did. You did. I asked the question because I think about people who are listening who might be thinking about that.
It's kind of a do your research thing. If you want a doctorate to teach at the collegiate level, well, first of all, get some experience. So, I would argue that the best thing I ever did was teach. I wouldn't advocate for 18 years. It's a little long, but the best thing I did was teach younger students before I went back to get a degree, because then I had something that I was able to attach those new experiences to, which made them way more meaningful to me. But I think you have to know what you want to do in a collegiate setting, so you can then determine which degree is going to work best for you. Like for me, I knew music ed was important to me, but I also knew that being in front of a band every day was even more important to me, because that's one of the things I just love to do. So I had to make the decision. It's like, okay, I need to go and work on the conducting. I need to get better at that, conducting the band, leading the ensemble, interacting with the ensemble, so that we can collectively, perform. That means I need to be in this track that is more performance-based, the DMA, so that I can get that skill set. Because in many places you can do a PhD and you can have a cognate in when conducting, but you spend most of your time, in the music ed track, and less time gaining perhaps the skill set that would lead you to be a college band director. So I knew that I needed to figure that out, and I figured that out. And then it's like, now who, of all the people that I've watched conduct bands over the years, who would I want to study with? And I did symposiums and all those things. And the real key was watching my teacher, Kevin Dahl, who's now also my boss, do our all-state band in North Carolina. And pretty much from that moment forward, I knew if I'm going to study conducting, this person is someone I really need to investigate, because I just loved his approach to rehearsing the ensemble and how he engaged with the players, engaged with the students, and then did a symposium with him. And it's like, and I love the way that he teaches conducting, because it's very, very clear, it's very concise, and it's very, well, here's the thing you need to do. Let's work on that thing. And I would argue, if you're doing a conducting degree, that person is going to live with you for however long you're at that school. And then they're going to be one of your biggest advocates, supporters, once you're out looking for jobs. So it needs to be the person who's good for you.
Where do you draw the line between healthy and unhealthy competition in music?
I think it's healthy when you are seeking feedback for the betterment of the ensembles and the students in them. I think it becomes unhealthy when the I'm using air quotes, you just can't see them, the prize becomes more important than that thing. If that statement makes sense. Because I'm a big fan of sitting down and listening to a judge's tape and going over the sheet, and then having the kids sit down and listen to the tape and see the judge's sheet, and then us having a conversation about how this is going to make us better, or even how things could have gone better in that performance, and how can we can apply the commentary we've received to us growing. That to me is the healthiest of all healthy, because that's where it's at. You want other people's feedback to inform you as in your next steps, because we hear our bands all the time, and sometimes, what is it called? It's like an ensemble deafness or something. I cannot think of the term right now, where we get used to hearing our ensembles all the time. So we get used to that sound. And then someone else comes in and is like, oh, how did I not hear that? How did I miss that? That's the reason that you want other people to work with, hear, be around, be in the room with your groups. You want those. And even on the judge tapes, you can hear the ensemble playing while the judge is talking or offering feedback over that. You can hear what they're, on the greatest of greatest judges tapes, you can hear in real time what they're talking about. So again, to me, that's the healthiest of healthy, is just looking for that feedback in order to be better.
Arris, a lot of music educators and band directors especially struggle with time management and finding balance in their life. And so what advice do you have to find work-life balance in a career as a music educator or a band director?
I would say follow your gut instinct. If your mind is telling you and your body's telling you, stop, sit down, just stop, you should probably listen. We're terrible at that. It's like, I've been terrible at that for years. I feel like I'm getting better. And I know, and I say that and it sounds so simplistic, and it may even sound like a little bit of a pat answer, but I don't mean it to be. I'm very serious, because it's, the number of people that talk about burnout, talk about being done, talk about leaving the profession is very concerning to me at this point, because it seems to be becoming more prevalent for different reasons every single school year. And I think one of the best things we can do for ourselves is listen to our gut instinct. And if our gut instinct, if we're being told by our own operating systems, you need to give yourself a break, even if it's for a day or a half day or an hour, just to and do that thing that you do to refresh yourself, to reboot yourself. I think that's one of the best things we can do, because that, again, it keeps us healthier. It keeps us more in balance. And then that allows us to do the thing that we're trying to do in the first place, which is be there for our groups. And it could be whatever that thing is you do for yourself. For some people, it could be running, it's exercising, whatever it is. Because, you can't be there for the people you want to be there for if you are feeling, I say, crispy around the edges, feeling burned out within yourself, because you're too in those things.
So this is a big question. What are the challenges facing music education or band, and how do we best meet them as we move forward in the 21st century?
I think it's always been a challenge just to make sure that, it's kind of like, maybe in my mind, it takes a village kind of thing, in that students go through college and they learn as much as they can learn while they're in college about what it is they need to do once they get out into our field. And then I think we as a village need to take over. I think that some of my student teachers would probably even call me a creeper to a point, just because I will check on them, or would check on them once they leave, some of them, to just see what was going on. It could be something as simple as a quick email or a Facebook message or whatever process you may use, just to make sure, because even I remember my first 3-4 years of teaching. I remember them not always fondly, just because of the amount of things that I just felt terrible about how I did them. So I think challenge number one is just them navigating college and getting as much knowledge as they can, and us helping them to do that. But then once they're out of college, we collectively have to help them continue to grow through the profession. And it can be tough, because sometimes, as a beginning teacher, perhaps they don't look like they want us to help them, for lack of a better way to put it, or they don't seem open. I've heard the phrase like, well, they just think they know it all. And, I'm certain I probably came off that way sometimes in certain situations about certain subjects, because I knew that I knew that thing. It's like, I know that thing. All these other things, maybe not so much, but I know that. And just helping them get through that, and all the things that we need to do to make sure that our profession will continue to be viable, and that we continue to offer music education in the best possible way in the places that have it. And I know there's a ton of other things that are out there that are challenges to us. Arts programs are disappearing in places. Arts programs are sorely underfunded in many places. But I think if we do a grassroots effort to a point when people are going into the profession to make sure that they're supported, we can probably grow the profession, because we'll have more and more and more competent teachers who are great teachers, who are then on top of that able to speak to the profession and why it's important and why it's vital to our society and why it needs to be present, from, our general music classes, or orchestra, all the other large ensembles like concert band, marching band, all those things. And like I said, I know there are other things, but that strikes me as something that we could do, I won't say easily, but something that we can do pretty readily that will help support things.
All right, Arris, so I could give you a time machine and you could go back to your high school graduation. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Don't be afraid to try things. Like, not everything has to be perfect all the time. Like, you don't have to have your way, and the way you think it is not the way it has to go all the time. It's like, wake, child, wake up. Like, that's such a struggle. It really, I think it takes so many people. For me, it was 40. When I hit 40, I'm like, what are we doing here? Why don't you try something that someone else suggested for once in your life? I mean, it was such a struggle to just get out of my own. I say this sometimes to people: get out of your own way so that you can learn and grow. It's so hard because, again, we learn so much and we have our things that we're competent at, but no, we're not competent at everything. It's just allowing yourself the space to try something, to have it fail miserably. Some of them are miserable. And then regroup, reboot, be reflective, and tweak the thing that made it fail miserably and try again. And for us teachers, when we fail, it's like stage. Who wants to fail on such a large stage? But I think a lot of the time it's like, if you fail and the kids know that it didn't go as well and know that you're aware and you own it, I think you are respected more by them, by your students, when they realize you're human.
All right, Arris, what would be the final work for wind ensemble or band that you would conduct, and why?
See, I've thought about this. This is an incredibly difficult question. And I'm going to go for a twofer, because I was at one long and now I've changed. So I have two distinct opinions. One middle school, one high school, college level, perhaps. Is that all right? Okay, which essentially means two things. So if the middle school level piece that has always, since the first moment I heard it, to this day, that always speaks to me, is Praire Songs by Pierre LaPlante. I just love that piece. And much like any Pierre LaPlante that you pick up, the writing is incredible. The way that he uses and evolves and has the folk songs that he uses play through is intriguing places and incredibly difficult to put together in some others. But that piece, I can always go back to that piece and find something new. And that's a rarity in any music. At that particular level, it's fun when you find pieces that do that. So that, and I think a part of me still feels like I haven't gotten it right yet. So it's like I haven't done the performance of it I need. So that would be that middle school level piece for me. Really, the advanced level thing is so hard, because there's a lot of pieces I've played over the years, and there's a lot of pieces that I want to do now that I have the opportunity to do them. But it's it's so very hard to nail down a piece, but I struggle with this, and I'm really going to say, and I'm still struggling with it. Can you tell? I'm really going to say the piece that I think I feel like I've just come to appreciate the most is the Dahl Sinfonietta. That piece, much like Praire songs, obviously vastly different levels. It just speaks to me in ways that are moving, and the way that Dahl managed to take a 12-tone row and not have it be, of what some people would consider that music to be, is just fascinating. And I was really lucky. I've played that piece once, and I was able to watch rehearsals of that piece while I was here at Michigan State in graduate school, and it still hits me in the same way that did, even if it's just the slower movement. If I just had the opportunity to do that, that'd be fine. It's just great. It's fantastic music.
All right. So, Arris, is there anything coming up that you would like to share or promote?
Well, this year is the 150th anniversary of the Michigan State Band program. So we're excited about the year when we were programming and planning, but this year is going to be really exciting. We've got some great things planned for Spartan Marching Band that involve our alumni, involve the alumni band in celebration of the 150th. And then the concert band side of things, we have some great concerts planned. We have some very big plans for all those ensembles, including we'll do a final gala concert that each band will premiere a new work for concert band. So for the concert band, that I teach here, Aaron Perrine's doing something new for us. For the symphony band, David Thornton, my colleague, conducts that. Ivette Harriman, who is one of our former graduates, Harriman, I hope I'm getting her name right, is doing commission for the symphony band. And then one of our composition professors, Joe Tien, is doing the new piece for the Wind Symphony, which Dr. Kevin Dahl conducts. So we're very excited about all that. Another upcoming thing for our symphony band, David just found out about that this week. They're going to be performing a divisional for College Band Directors National Association this coming February up at DePaul University in Chicago, and we're all looking forward to that. They will be phenomenal and fantastic, and it'll be fun part of that. But it's again, we always look forward to our years and what we're planning, and we always have pretty busy years, but this one's going to have just a little bit more to it, and it's going to be a little bit more special, I think, for all of us.
Arris, how can people get in touch with you?
Probably most easily through the Michigan State College of Music website. And our entire faculty is listed there, so I'm very easy to find there. If you just Google Michigan State University College of Music, the website will the website will pop right up. So, yeah. You know what? In retrospect, I'm going to add one more thing. We're also really excited that we're getting a brand new addition to our music building that will open this spring. Yeah, that's going to be it's going to be very exciting, especially for the students and the new practice room spaces that they're going to be able to utilize, and it's going to be an exciting year because of that as well. I can't believe I almost left that out.
All right, Arris. Well, this was a great conversation, and I want to thank you for coming on the show.
I am very excited that I was able to find a time that we could get together. It's been great to talk to you.